How are we doing, friends? And welcome back as always to Continues to Tick. Hopefully me being here every 2 weeks is an indicator to you that the time is passing by. And if you're not doing anything with it, hopefully you get this little voice. Jesse's telling you, hey, time is passing. Time continues to tick. Do something about it. Do something about it. That's how my mind operates, friends. My mind is constantly in the future, and being a dividend investor, that aligns. Because to be a dividend investor, you're not going to see day-to-day progress. That's progress that you see over time. And if you could look ahead into the future as a dividend investor, you see the vision, you see the grander picture, you can see yourself in that outcome that you're desiring, that you're kind of planning for, preparing for, and it just goes really well. So if you're a future-oriented person, you're likely also going to be a dividend investor. I'm going to go into the portfolio here in a minute. I just want to let you guys know the topic for today's video is why do I believe I can achieve wealth? We're going to dive into that. Use the timestamps down below if you want to just jump to the topic, but a part of me is pretty sure that you like to see the portfolio review, so we'll jump into that next here. So as you can see, friends, I think this is the very first time that we've crossed into the 96K mark, which is awesome. We're at $96,133.18. And this is the Jesse's cash flow portfolio. It's the one that I began in the year of 2020, roughly in July. And it's crazy to think that we're already in September. And September's almost going to be over. Fall's going to begin. And with fall comes the holidays and winter. And before you know it, we're going to be in 2025. That's crazy to me. Again, just like I started the video, this is time passing. So if you're a young individual, think about it. Think about your financial future. Think about your financial security. The topic for this video is why I believe I can build wealth. I'm hoping with this topic and just this story, right, over time of me documenting this journey can show you that anybody can just build wealth. As long as you leverage time, leverage thinking about the future, because those two things go hand in hand. If you just think about the present moment, how am I going to get rich today? You're going to freeze, you're going to stall. It's going to be very overwhelming. But if you just extend your timeline, expand your time horizon, right? You want to be a millionaire. Oh, well, if you want to be a millionaire in 5 years, 10 years, 2 decades, that's a short amount of time. If you want to be a millionaire and you extend and expand your horizon, give yourself 30 years, 40 years, you could do this. 40 years to a 20-year-old is nothing. You're going to be 60, and that's definitely feasible. My point to saying all of that, friends, is think about the future, have a plan or a blueprint. If you're a future-oriented individual, be and think about becoming a dividend investor, or honestly, just a growth investor, but we do dividends here. Growth investing is a whole nother strategy. I like to have my cake and eat it too, which is having my portfolio and also getting passive income, cash coming in from the dividends, right? That's just my strategy. I'm biased, I know. But 96K is a really good milestone, and we're getting and inching closer to the 100K mark. This is the graph here. I mean, it's pretty wild, honestly, when I look back and think about it, and I look at the graph. But just know I didn't just land here at this portfolio size. This took 4 years. 4.5 almost. No, about 4 and 3 months or so, something like that, up to this point. But it took 4 years, right, to get here. We're just gonna run through these. So this is the week, this is the month, this is 3 months, this is a year to date, and then this is 1 year, and of course all time. And this economy continues to be what it is. And it's like you can stand on the sidelines at what's going on in the economy, or you can actively do something about it. And that's why I'm really excited to just talk about this topic for today's video, of this mindset issue that a lot of us continue to have of building wealth. A lot of us don't think it's possible for ourselves. The thing is, you start with a small shovel. We all do, for the most part, right? If we're in the middle class, we start with a small shovel and then we trade it for a bigger and bigger shovel, as long as we continue to move in the right direction, right? That's why if you don't have a big shovel, you leverage time and take advantage of that, right? You invest a little bit each month, each week, as much as you can as you continue to progress in your career, get a bigger and bigger check, and then you invest a little bit more in addition, right? And you just kind of trickle up that way. And as far as the performances here, right, we're on the all-time. The best gainer continues to be tech at 392%. A big chunk of that is still NVIDIA. I would say I got lucky with it, but I intentionally chose it, right? I just didn't know it was gonna balloon like it did, right? And I'll just click on it here just to show you. So NVIDIA, it has given me a return of 1,400%, clearly way above the allocation that I set for it. I only had it at 28%, but it has continued to increase in value, and now it's just really just engulfing my whole tech sector. For now, I'm just holding on to it. It's just one of those, I'm letting it ride. And you can see the other performers that I have in here. Oracle is my second best performer. It's like a very low-key tech stock you don't really hear too much about. Apple's in here, a lot more popular with 100% return. If you guys are curious, you guys actually want to look at everything that I'm holding. I know there's been a lot more people joining the journey here, which is awesome to see. And you just want to see what it is that I'm holding. Check out the description box. There's a link to my M1 Pi. You can click on that and you can go at your own leisure. You can see everything that I'm holding, and pretty much week to week, or I guess bi-weekly to bi-weekly, video to video, it's going to be practically the same thing. If I sell anything at all, I'll let you guys know. My very last holding that I sold was Walgreens, and even before that, I don't remember if I sold anything other than a chunk of NVIDIA a while ago to go to Greece. But I really don't sell. I don't sell unless I'm really forced to. Like, for example, the Walgreens, I had to sell because it just continued to just dwindle away. It was giving me, good cash back, but it was really affecting the stock price, and I'm all about dividend growth investing. If I see a company stagnating too much, I have some concerns. And then as well, right, with Walgreens, if they cut their dividend. And I think they did it twice. So like that is something to me that it was a red flag, so I had to get rid of it. But tech is the best performer. We also have financials, we have energy at 115%, and then after energy, a little bit more normal in terms of gains or returns. So 65% for industrials. My ETF, if you're curious, I'll show you that, which is SPYD. It's giving me 61% return. It's a high dividend paying ETF. And consumer discretionary is at 56%. Index fund, I can show you this one, about 55%. This one's VIG. It's a pretty popular one. SPYD is one I don't see a lot of people hold. I have 50 holdings in this portfolio, and I am very diversified in a way. So I have companies that are clearly all about growth, like NVIDIA, and I just wanted some dividends coming in. So that's why I got SPYD. That was my rationale with that, trying to balance it out. I got materials here at 44%, real estate giving me 38%, utilities about 30%, communications 20%, and then consumer staples give me 10%. And consumer staples, actually, this is where I had my Walgreens. This was a sector, the whole sector was actually in the red because it was getting dragged down by my Walgreens. And ever since I sold my Walgreens, all time it's bounced back. So that's a good sign, right? That's what I wanted. It's giving me about a 10% return. And of course, dividends. So that's a good sign. And as far as healthcare, healthcare it's been dragging for a bit. I think it's a holding or two in there. But I'm an RN. That's what I do by trade. I work as a nurse consultant, and I believe in the healthcare system, even though it's a really broken healthcare system here in America. But I have a sector of that. It's only 7% of my portfolio. Technically, only 6.2%, and it's in the red 2%. Which is pretty flat. Overall, in here, Johnson & Johnson is carrying it through with nearly a 20% gain, but it got Medtronic, a medical device company, which I think is a good idea, right, of a business model, negative 4%, and then Pfizer, negative 20%. So, that is it. That's it for that. Like I said, if you're curious, I know how helpful it is when you're starting out your dividend portfolio or when you're just looking to make some changes. It's hard to know, right? It takes a while, I guess I should say, to do research. If you look at other people's portfolios, you can look into the sectors that they have and what holdings they have in those sectors just to get ideas of what it is that they're holding. And then you do your own research and you're like, oh, that aligns with my portfolio. Oh, that one doesn't. And then you can add or subtract, right? And that's kind of what I did when I first started. I did a lot of research, but I did look at a lot of people's portfolios. I didn't mirror or copy any specific one. I just had to get ideas for sectors, right? And which holdings go in these sectors, which ones are people kind of buying or holding. And overall, I started with like a huge list and I narrowed it down to 50. And that's why I have what I have in my portfolio. So let's go over to the activity section here and let me just show you. So I still fund $100 every single week. I'm still holding on. Even though I now work as a nurse consultant, I work from home, it's technically a job promotion. I had to take a pay cut to get it. I'm always going to say this because it's going to be something that I'm going to be proud of one day and look at and I paid my dues. So when I was working as an RN at the state prison system right here in California, I was making about $134,000 when I left. It's really good money. And this current role, I make $110,000. So it was a $24,000 pay cut, which is nothing to just turn a blind eye to. That's a substantial amount of money. But I did it because I knew that the runway is just so much greater. I would always be capped because I had already reached my max in the state prison system. I was at 134,000 and year by year, maybe I'd get 2% or 3%, but I was already at the max. And I knew I didn't want to become a nursing supervisor because I'd tried that and I didn't like it. So I pivoted, went back to school, got my master's degree, and I became a nurse consultant. One, because I get to work from home, which is awesome. To work from home as a nurse is amazing. I can't even describe how great it is to just work from home. The level of freedom, flexibility that you get with this, I can actually take a deep breath. The second reason was the runway. Yes, I had to take a step back to 110,000, but my runway potential, instead of getting 2 or 3% increases, I'm going to be at this job for about 2 or 3 years, right, to get the experience I need to then flip this job for one that starts out around 144,000, and then that job has a runway up to 185, 190,000. My idea is in about 6, 7, 8 years, I would be capped and making about 185, 190,000, and I'd be able to work from home. That is career development. That is how you guys need to look at your careers. Find little avenues, find pathways, and go for it. It's scary. I actually did my very first trip assignment, my very first overnight trip, because as a nurse consultant, I know I'm rambling here, but maybe you find this interesting. I went on my first overnight trip. I live in Northern California. I flew to Southern California to go to 2 big hospitals, interview executive line staff. Very intimidating, quite scary, very much out of my comfort zone to do this, but it's what I got to do. It's what I got to do. And the trade-off to this is I get to work from home, and I'm also building out my career and building out a skill set that just gets paid more. And that's how this thing goes. You have to find a trade, you have to find a career, you have to find a skill that just pays you more. Being a nurse consultant will eventually pay me more than being a floor nurse, being a bedside nurse. And that's just the reality of the fact. So I could have been a bed nurse, been a floor nurse my whole career, but I'd be capped. That skill set only pays so much. That's why nurse managers get paid more, because it's a certain skill set. That's why managers in general, supervisors in general, get paid more, because now you're managing. To manage people is a skill, right? That just gets paid more. Just like being a nurse consultant who will fly, rent cars, get hotels, go speak to executive line staff, do audits and interviews of executive line staff. They just get paid more. Right now I'm a baby nurse consultant. There's a part of me that always downplays it. I just feel like I have to pay my dues. So enough of that little rant, a little ramble, but hopefully you found some of that interesting. But like I said, now pivoting back, I fund $100 into this portfolio currently. All this to say, it's a small amount into what I used to do. I used to funnel $500 at the very beginning of my journey here of a dividend investor. But that's because I was fresh out of college and my obligations were just much smaller. I was renting like a 1-bedroom apartment with my still now partner. Her and I were just splitting that, and we were pocketing a lot more money versus now, we have a bigger place. We have 2 dogs. We're still smart with our finances, but life happens, right? Like you want to take some trips and you want to live life a little. You want to spend a little bit more on, just fulfilling some things that you've been wanting, right? Like making experiences. Experiences cost money. Just switching back to the actual picture here, all these are dividend payouts, right? Everything here in the green ADM paid me about $18, J&J $15, Chevron $7, Sunoco $7, IBM $6, Exxon $7, Snap-on $6, Southern Company $8.82. And here's another $100 funnel. I really want to show you guys how much I'm getting paid in dividends, but I saved that for my big monthly dividend portfolio review. So just stick around. That'll be coming out in about 2 weeks or so for the month of September. So now, friends, we're going to pivot over here a little bit. Now we're going into the topic for today's video. Hopefully the portfolio review is helpful. I do that every 2 weeks just to show you guys the progress happening over time. It's not to just have you guys compare to me. I just really like being transparent with my journey. I've been transparent with this journey since the very first upload that I've had on this channel. And it's cool to see people joining the journey. We're like at 1,600 subs. I keep it very simple. Make a video, show you my journey, talk about my experience, talk about my career development, and just over time, friends, you're going to see the progress unfold. And that is the main message to what I show and what I do here. But the topic for today's video, friends, is why do I believe I can achieve wealth? You know, there's this quote that goes like this, right? It's that people are the same. The only thing that differs are their habits. And that's 100%. 100%. Some people may be given, a really bad deck of cards. Some people may be given a really good hand of cards. But the fact is, at the end of the day, if the person with the bad hand outworks and stays dedicated to a path that's more beneficial than the person with the good hand, right? The good deck, that person can exceed the other person just based on the habits, right? And the pathway and the blueprint that they follow. So don't allow your circumstance to take you out completely. Acknowledge your circumstance if it's difficult, but understand that for the most part, we are all the same. The thing that can differ is the habits, and that's where you can really make up a lot of ground, right? Be consistent with positive progression. The thing is, friends, people take back steps way too often in their life, and those back steps continue to push them backwards, or they take too many, right? You'll make a lot of positive progress, and then you'll take your own self out, and then you have to ramp up again and try to catch up again to where you were. And that's what happens. Let's start with this list here. So for me, friends, I'm a first generation born here in the United States. I'm Hispanic, I'm Mexican American. My parents came from Mexico in their 20s, 30s, but I was born here. I grew up looking at them move, and being able to grow up with them as an example, it has taught me a lot about progression, finances, financial status, work ethic, having a plan, sticking to a plan, the positive outcome of all these things. They worked for everything they got. Nothing was handed to them. They came to this country starting out working in the orchard fields, like literally doing the jobs that no one wants to do, getting paid pennies on the dollar, out in the sun, getting beat all day long. And I remember this. I remember seeing this as a kid. And it didn't really process and register until as I was getting older. My dad, even into his later career, he went from working in the orchards, getting paid pennies on the dollar, to then getting paid, pennies on the dollar setting plumbing foundation for construction homes, right? When people were building new homes, he was laying the plumbing for those homes. It was all these things that my parents were going through that I think drove them, right? And they've told me it drove them to live and make certain decisions. My parents would buy a home, and then they would live in it, they'd fix it, and then they'd rent it, and then buy their next home and keep their prior home. And they did this a few times, and then they got rental properties over time. And eventually one of their biggest investments was actually buying, because they saw this model and how it worked, apartments. They have an apartment complex that they bought. They have their rentals, they have their apartment complex, and they live good. They live in an area where most people probably have some type of degree, some type of career pathway, and they did it with a whole different unconventional route, which a lot of people actually see now as very conventional, right? Which is real estate investing. And they did this, decades ago. And this is what I saw growing up. I saw that they didn't make a lot of money, but they saved wisely, invested wisely, and they made sacrifices. Some of the sacrifices was we never went on family trips. If we ever went to Mexico, we drove by car, which would take 3 days to get there, and we wouldn't sleep in hotels, right? We would sleep in our car. And I remember all these things, right? Like we wouldn't even eat out. We would eat out maybe once a week. And if we ever went to a nice restaurant, it was Applebee's. Like Applebee's was our nice restaurant, and we would only go because my dad would get a gift card for like $50 from his work, right? His laying plumbing in these construction homes work, right? They would give him like once a year, they'd give him, something, right? Like a gift card for, going to Applebee's or maybe Macaroni Grill or something like that. And those would be the only times we would ever go to these nice restaurants. And we would go so infrequently that my parents never knew tipping culture. So we would go and not even tip. Like we'd probably tip like $1 or $3 or $5, like max, for a family of 5. And this was my upbringing. All this shaped me into who I am. Seeing them move allowed me to see the importance of moving a certain way, right? Not taking back steps, making the right decisions, thinking about your future. And over time, friends, they started to elevate their life in a way that the people who were also from where they were from didn't elevate, right? And that's where I remember growing up, being like in high school and having friends who had very similar families to mine, and they thought we were wealthy for whatever reason. But the fact is, my parents were just moving differently than their parents. And their parents were buying the cars and spending their money or wasting it. My parents were investing it, and we started moving in a different path. And even today, they're not wealthy by any means, but they're well off. And that's where, for me, being the first generation, I saw that, and I leveraged that whole case study, and I use it now to my advantage. I became a nurse and now pivoting into my career path, right? So for me, I saw that they lived this life by making pennies on the dollar. What can I do by actually making good money and doing the same blueprint, right? And that's where I became a nurse. Like I had the opportunity to really go and build out a career path for myself, right? I became an RN because I knew it'd be a good career with many options. I'd make good money, at least $100K a year here in California. I make $110K right now working from home, which I understand that would be a lot of people's dream job. And I don't take that lightly, and I leverage this opportunity to not just go blow my money on a BMW or a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon that I want. I leverage this money to build a dividend portfolio to $96K to work for the state government, where now I just got vested, right? And then also invest more into a 457B, right? And then I save my money, or I invest my money into getting a master's degree to then build out my career more, right? To then get a different job that's better. It's technically easier on my body, and it will one day pay me more. So this is the sequence, right? This is what I want you guys to see. For me, it started looking at my own case study from my childhood and picking and choosing the things that I liked and the things that I didn't like. One of the things that I didn't like, just to be transparent and honest, was my parents' actual relationship. So what did I do about that, right? We're going to pivot a little bit here. When I got into my own partnership, right, with my partner, we've been together for 8 years. I really put a lot of work into that because that's a core piece. One of the things in this life, friends, you're going to realize is you're only going to go as far as the people next to you. So if the person next to you is bringing you down emotionally, relationally, they're going to pull you down. You're going to pull yourself down. But in this case, that wasn't the case. And for me, I put a lot of energy into that. I do couples counseling, I do individual. So I put a lot of energy into that, just to give you an example. And then now moving on to number 3, right? We're going to continue down this list. Removing limiting beliefs is one of the reasons why I believe I can build wealth. One of my limiting beliefs that I often see in today's economy is, I can't do it. I'll never do it. I'll never get rich. I'll never get wealthy. Sure, never is forever. So if you say never, you've already taken yourself out of the game. And that's why I refer to this economy as a game. You have to be an active participant, an active player. You are player one in this life. You are, nobody else. So if you limit your own beliefs and you say never, will I ever? Well, that's forever. You're going to be right. We always have this idea that we want to be right. Our ego wants to be right. So if you tell yourself never, it sucks, but then it actually feels better because you're right about it. You'll be right that you'll never be wealthy. You'll be right that you'll never be rich. And in a way, it feels bad, but it feels good because now you're correct about your outcome. Oh, I was always right. I'm glad I never bothered because, I knew I would have never got it. So I didn't waste my time trying. Well, friends, to not try at all is wasting your time. To not try at all is wasting your life because there's a disconnect there. You desire and want more, and you're living a life that doesn't align to the desire that you want. And now that is hurtful. That would be a hurtful desire. I only have positive and beneficial desires because I have a desire, and then I do everything on my day-to-day, my month-to-month, my year-to-year to align with that future desire one day. So there's no disconnect, there's no fracture. If I want $1 million home, I'm gonna work my way today to get that home. If I wanna live in a nice town, a nice city, a nice neighborhood, but it costs me a good penny in the future, well, I'm gonna work my ass off today to eventually get that. And if I wanna drive a nice car and have a good retirement, I'm gonna align myself today to in the future have that. And that way there's no fracture, there's no disconnect, and it is no empty desire. You have to do this by removing your own limiting beliefs. Like the saying goes, never say never, because never is forever. For me, I saw my childhood case study. I picked and chose what I liked and didn't like. I got a career path that aligned with the outcome of making good money, giving me a solid foundation, working for the government where I can get a pension at the very least, even if I miss, right? Even if I miss on this path, I will at least after 25 years have a pension, right? Which in a way inflates my belief because it allows me to be a little bit more risky, a little bit more ambitious, because I know where I would fall even if I don't hit, right? I will fall into a pension for life. But if I hit my target and I have a pension for life. So there's a difference. Remove your limiting beliefs. They're holding you back. So for this last one, friends, one thing in this life you're gonna have to realize is you have to identify a blueprint. You have to. You can't go in blind. For me, I used my parents again as a case study. I saw that you really don't have to make a lot of money to be successful. You really don't have to make a lot of money to live well off, right? You make what you make, but then you save what you make, and then you invest everything you can, right? As much as you can. And in that process, you're gonna have to make sacrifices. So you sacrifice as much as you can, right? With the money that you make. Some people will sacrifice and eat rice and beans, right? Like that's a whole another level of sacrifice. Some people will never take travel trips or vacations, right? Some people will never eat at restaurants. Some people will never buy their dream car because they want to make sure they get to a place where they're well off. For me, friends, I saw my parents do it with limited income. And for me, knowing that I make a lot more money than they've ever made tells me that I can do it 100%. I can do it. And I could do it at a way different level than what they were able to do. Despite what the economy does, despite everything going up with inflation, I remove my limiting beliefs, and my blueprint is this, right? If you ever want to understand what my blueprint is, it is this. Find a job, find a career that is solid, as solid as it gets, one that will always give you income. When you work for the state government, that's as sure of a bet as you can find in this current economy. The layoffs are a lot lower, the pay may be lower, but you also, even if you miss, right, you land with a pension after 2 or 3 decades. So find a for sure source of income. And trust me, even if it's a little, you invest a little. If it's a lot, now you be careful now because temptation comes in, but invest. So you make your income, you save, you invest. As you invest for retirement. That's your target. Play it boring. Be boring with your investments. The exciting ones will come back and bite you, even if it's not financially. It'll come and bite you psychologically. I've played with penny stocks. I've played with growth stocks. I've played with crypto. And trust me, there's a place for all these. At the expense is psychological expense. The rest, the not having to stress about, oh, when do I sell? Oh, how much is it going up? That's why I am specifically a dividend investor, because it's very boring. It's very slow. It allows me room to operate, and it allows me to live my life. So I don't have bandwidth escaping me and going into things that don't matter. Because you can look at your whole life and say, oh, money doesn't matter. And I agree with you until it does. So you can only really say money doesn't matter if you have money. Once you have it, you can say, oh yeah, it doesn't matter. But if you don't have it, you're always going to be chasing it. It's always going to really matter. And it's always going to fog up the lens in your life. So identify a blueprint, friends, is one of the ways to really be able to remove these limiting beliefs and understand and tell yourself that one day you're going to be wealthy. And so that's going to be it, friends, for this video. I'm not sure how quite long it is, but we will find out here in a second. I enjoyed this topic. I get passionate about it. For me, I grew up seeing limiting beliefs get smashed, so I know that it's possible. And for me, I give myself no excuse. And for you, I want to do the same, but I'm also empathetic to understand that people's circumstances are different. But even if you are somewhere today, just don't be in that same spot today in 5 years from now. That's the only thing I ask. Because if that is you, if you are where you are today and you're still in the same spot in 5 years, in 10 years, it'd be hard for me to say it is not your fault. Because at that point, you probably chose, and it's a choice, to not move. And at that point, you really didn't move. And then it would be your fault. Anyways, friends, I'll see you guys on the next video. As always, make sure to subscribe. We're here on this journey. We're going to be here for a very long time. And I'll see you guys on the next one.